In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Okay, so hello everyone. With the honesty of my current awareness to reality, I find myself in a moment to present a lecture, not just in the presence of the created existence, but in some sense, the creator as well. I find myself in this moment to not just be on Earth, in the Milky Way galaxy, in our solar system. I find myself having had the courage to wonder about where we actually are before we started conditioning it to us. And so I find myself present, actually. I find all of us. You know, this is probably an uncommon view for those who are alive now in 2025. But in 2025 right now, I am not seeing a world where you have, in some sense, I see an unknown, we're all unknown beings. This is an unknown place. And we cannot ignore the unconditional nature of reality, especially when we are a conditional aspect of it. And so today, the lecture I intended to give you, I have intended to give you, is one where I am questioning on a level that is so sensitive that in some sense it's like I'm asking a question that a creature with just a fixed identity cannot answer. I wrote in the title, "Do I want what my mind wants?" I think this is a very important question because right now, if you go ask people, are you just a body? Because they can remember different moments, they have different memories, they have a sort of psychological ability to communicate. People know they're not just bodies, you know, they're not just like some object in a room. You are the force that is animating that object. That object is animate in accordance to a force within it, right? So it's not like, so if you look at human beings and you look at another, like let's say you look at a stone column and you look at a human being. If let's say you look at a statue, okay, and then you look at a human being, right? So in some sense, why don't you communicate, greet, talk to a statue of someone? Do you know why is it that one object compared to another object is taken more seriously? That means from a physical standpoint, that statue is made of atoms and my cells and my body is made of atoms. Okay, so it's like an elemental reality. What is the difference? Now, the difference is that if the statue started to move, it would no longer just be a statue. If it started responding intelligently to its environment, then you cannot just limit that intelligence to a form. So we need to kind of understand that we are this process that's taking place, and we are a process inside many processes that has suddenly noticed it's a process. So what does that mean? In the same way my known self is living a life and in some sense I communicate to others, yeah, hey guys, this is me, what's up, this is my name, and I have a sense of what happens to my known self, or but I have come to the maturity as a being in this realm to discover that no, there is an unknown self. You have memories before you learned language. There is a presence that is intelligently engaging the moment before there is an assumed idea communicating the moment. Dear human beings, right now it's strange hearing this lecture because I am using language. I am acting as an individual. I'm like, yo man, I'm this guy saying something in this story of a world. But in reality, what I'm trying to tell you is that, are you owned by a story? That means if you look at who the true, they said that slavery had ended. Slavery in the external realms has ended. At least we have a global mandate to be civilized and understand its air, right? But if you thought for a second, wait a minute, what if slavery still exists, but it's not the enslavement of people enslaving people, or an object enslaving an object, okay, another object? It is in some sense, what if subjects are enslaving objects? Just think about this for a moment. Okay, because it is so easy. Hear it from someone who growing up had an agreeable personality, was shy, introverted, and anywhere I went, people were like, what a good person, even without knowing me. I'm not kidding. Do you know? I was like the incarnation. I was the incarnation. Do you know? Like some people think, yo, man, do you know, I'm the reincarnation of Buddha, yo. Do you know, I'm the reincarnation of like, Marcus Aurelius, anytime I eat a Caesar salad, So what I'm telling you is really, excuse me, I'm trying to make an argument that yes, we managed to learn some lessons as a species, that objects should not control other objects. But should subjects control objects? I'm one of those hilarious people who, they're like, yo man, explain the soul, body, mind, spirit. I was explaining analytically so the academic people can, laugh at the dolphin that leaped out of the, mediocrity, the oceans of mediocrity of reality. My fellow human species, my beloved existence, I am someone who, there's this quote, there was this quote from Rumi, this mystic poet from, I don't know, 800, 900 years ago or something. And he says that your task is not to search for love, but to get rid of all the barriers against it. And I was someone who, I would say this perspective went on even for years ago, like started from years ago and it kept going on, right? Where I felt like, man, this might sound strange to you, to the viewers, you might not assume this from the type of persona that I express, but I had a very huge problem with trying to understand whether I as a being deserve to be loved or not. Do you know? It's some people so easily they say it, love yourself. So easily they say it. And it's a beautiful thing. It's their blessing. I have seen people in states of blessings. That means this world just shows you all the different ways that human intelligence engages reality. That's what it is. The reason I am existing not alone in a cosmos, but I'm existing alongside a species, is because I am here to see this species from all your behaviors, from all the rights and wrongs, from all the rudeness and politeness. At some point you look at this realm and you wonder about its presence. I am trying to tell you that I went through this cycle of thinking that I have so many barriers against truth. Then how do I say it? One thing I trained. That means if somebody says, yo, man, throughout everybody's childhood, they get trained in something. That means something repeats for them. Some main thing that influences their identity, right? For me, it was this feeling of being trapped behind myself. That means people, usually I think it's for the longest time I thought it was like uncompassionate, or it was like cruel or something. Do you know? When people were rude to like shy people, then but now I feel like it's justified. Do you understand? That means I how do I explain this to you? Not every being is capable of being responsible for all the ways that they express. And really, the challenge of being a human being is the challenge of wondering about how to be an expression in reality. Reality is honestly a very nice word, because, it's like they're like, okay, you're not just in somewhere real, you're being real. It's like the reality. Actually, the reality is kind of like the context of it. Guys, this world is remarkable. I have had so many projections. I have lived 12,000 days on this planet. Now, there's people older than me, where I would say, mashallah, right? But there was a time where the human lifespan didn't go past the age 25, you know? And now I'm 33 giving a lecture, right, in 2025, where the world is at least, many people look at capitalism, right? Okay, here, let me ask you a question. Which is better, a looping a balanced reality that loops, or a turbulent reality where there is novelty and innovation? Ladies and gentlemen, if you see me here talking about this stuff, is because you're listening to someone who has become exceptionally, incredibly, in a very advanced way, bored of existence. Do you know? It's like I'm here, it's not showing me what it is, right? And in some sense, I am wondering what I am here to even show it what I am, right? And that's what we call life. Right now, what life in 2025 is an unknown being, acting as a known self, in an unknown world, and the whole world's acting like it knows itself. Why? Because we rather have organized intelligence move us, rather than in some sense randomity. That's what it has been. It has been a responsibility over the organization of existence. That is the human game. So I'm going to go back to this notion of slavery. And I was saying that the human species, it has learned from mistakes, and in some sense, in regards to slavery of an object owning another object, that is an error. Do you know, in some sense, there's a reason the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has been written. There's a reason we have awareness and some sort of ethical backup system of conscience in the human being. Do you know? Because we care and understand value. Compassion is a sign that you understand the value of a moment. Do you know? For me, I'm trying to tell you that just because we're not wearing chains, okay, just because there isn't chains like Silas attached to us, from that video game, do you know? And also, it has a biblical reference. I don't know the exact story of Silas in Christianity, but if somebody knows, please inform me. I will, in due time, go check it out. But anyways, this is what I was saying, yo. Guys, for some reason, YouTube doesn't have this option of writing back. You know, no, man. You're saying get a girlfriend. My grandmother's saying get a wife. Do you know what I mean? My future kids who haven't been born yet, but in my inner realms, I envision them are asking where their mother is. Do you know if like my kids from the future, came back right now? Do you know? And they're like, "Yo, how did you meet your mother?" I'll be like, excuse me, how did you meet our mother?" Do you know? And I'll be like, "I didn't meet your." I'll be like, "Guys, I'm not married yet. Married yet. You kids came back too soon." But I'll be smart enough to see my time traveling kids from the future, and by just looking at their appearance, I think they would have given me the answer. They would give me the answer by how they look like. Unless they come back as some sort of like, in suits or something, like Iron Man suits. Can you imagine, you know, a character like in an Iron Man type of futuristic suit coming back from the future, and you're just staring at it, smoking a cigarettes by a coffee shop, smoking a cigarette by a coffee shop, and being like, okay, right? And then this intimidating like Iron Man, advanced futuristic Iron Man suit just looks at you and says, "Dada." Sorry, guys, I was trying to give a lecture here. And somebody go and find my future girlfriend, and tell her to go, find her boyfriend. All right, all right. Guys, there's this story about Elon Musk, which I find to be like one of the most incredible stories ever in human history. Okay, this story explains the romance of our generation. Do you know? And it was like one of Elon Musk's ex-wives, right? And he's like, "Yeah, Elon told me, hey, you want to go back to the hotel and watch rocket videos? Do you know?" And the girl's like, "All right, okay." And she's like, "Yeah, we just went back and we just watched rocket videos." Like, oh man. Guys, to just be a being in a world that's being is just hard work. They're like, "Yo, man," you're like, "Yo, I'm spending all this energy and hard work to exist, and I'm not even getting paid for it." Guys, in the future, an advanced civilization would pay you to brush your teeth. I'm telling you. Oh man. It's like, can you imagine like the presidents in the future? So we're gonna spend like $1 billion, like $3 billion of taxpayer money, to make sure that every human being brushes their teeth every day. Sorry, guys, I got distracted. But anytime you hear me laugh, don't worry. There's the terror of the unknown and what all this means and what's exactly gonna happen, looming by. The nature of this reality is that you can laugh here. It doesn't mean the world's gonna laugh. Yo, no problem, guys. In my view, if the viewers share anything, that's just adding, life to the lecture, more life to the lecture. It's like the moment has called upon another soul, you know. Like the reason you're here is maybe not just to listen, you know. Can you imagine? I'll be like, how selfish are my listeners, yo? You know, they just listen without saying anything. They're like, you know, ghosts of, it's honestly like, it's when you look at a video and, okay, so I went and checked. Okay, here, I can't do it now, but see, guys, I took the attention to myself and I drifted into a different emotional room. Your inner realms work like rooms, by the way. You know, I don't know how I've known this, but for me, I think that those who are polite to their mind. Okay, so the whole point of this lecture is me having brought forth such a metaphysical, transcendental question that really, if anybody heard this title, they would have to be wondering what it means and realizing that at some point we are reaching the unknown in this lecture. That means the context of this lecture and the answer to this question touches the unknown. When it touches the unknown, that means there is a state where the unknown variables are more than the known variables. The known variables don't justify it. You see, and by the way, somebody in the chat section said, somebody evidently is, taking psychedelic mushrooms and listening to this right now. I will advise you what Terence McKenna said, okay? And maybe, let me tell you, Terence McKenna, who to some is this human being that brought like a lot of awareness to how plants affect the psychology of a human being. And whenever he would engage, this is Native American spirituality. Like, that's how I see it. Do you know? To be honest, all actions can be culturally referenced to something. Do you know? They're like, yo, man. It's like, imagine somebody does an action and they're like, yo, man, the Americans did it. Before them, the natives did it. Before them, those people did it. Before, just human programs coming and arising and just fulfilling their existence and leaving. You know, to be honest, this world is happening in a way where it's as if we are not here to be in charge of it. I will tell you one of the funniest kind of religious experiences I've had. Okay? So imagine, this is even before I truly became Muslim. Okay? But there's a reason right now to me Islam, and it's not like Islam in the sense of like, yo, if I'm an Arab, do you know, if I'm not an Arab, am I a kafir? Do you know? It's like, no. To me, it doesn't matter if I heard about Islam now or if I was alive back in the day in some village and somebody said it. The whole premise is that truth is beyond the world room. That means to look for truth in a simulation is equivalent to treating the simulation as truth. And I realized something, that everybody believes this world is real. And this holy book had the courage to be like, nah. And people are going to be like, what do you mean? What do you mean this world isn't real? And I would be like, its realism is like, somebody once said this very fascinating metaphor that imagine there's these children, imagine a woman is having twins or having triplets or something, do you know? And it's like the whole point of it was, imagine like two fetus having a discussion about life and the meaning of reality, and one fetus says, I feel like beyond this world there's something else, right? I also feel that there's a system admin, there's a God, and I feel we're all connected to this God, but we are not that God, right? And imagine another fetus being like, what are you saying, man? It's only this here, there's no such thing other than the umbilical cord, right? And then they're bored and they begin to see that from the internal, as from within the womb of the mother, they were in some sense, that reality was different than the world outside. Now imagine death is something similar, okay? Imagine, this might sound strange, but this is an idea that death is something similar. That once you step out of the womb, or once you finish this lifetime, past that finishing line, do you know? It's equivalent to having a outside relationship with the same reality. Do you understand? That means when the child hasn't even manifested as a fetus, it is still the mother. Do you know? The mother and the father, technically, but still the mother. Do you know? When the fetus is born, it's as if it's not just the mother anymore. That means it's become a scenario that is not just the same person as before. And then when the child is born, do you know, that's like a different phase. And imagine to the day where your child has a conversation with you. Like, I don't understand why many parents don't care about having conversations with their children, you know? Like, deeper than their expectation of a fixed reality that was what they used to say, but now it has all changed. So what I'm trying to say is, now forget the whole, this metaphor, right? And I want you to imagine it completely different, that from in the simulation of reality, and guys, I don't believe that God is I don't believe God is like all of our mother. It's the mother of all reality, or the father of all existence. To me, it surpasses human ideology. You gotta at some point, not pity, but just sympathize, empathize with the human species and be like, okay, we are this like skeletal structure, and around the skeletal structure there is unique intelligence, right? And it's like, in the same way, it's like a couple pound brain in a skull, and this brain that doesn't hit the walls of the skull, right? That means anytime you move, your body's intelligent enough to make sure your brain doesn't hit the walls, right? But if the brain hits the walls of the skull, that's what you call a concussion, by the way, right? So I'm saying we're this part of existence that is a part of existence. It is not the totality of existence. And sometimes, I used to be one of these people, but for some reason, you'll go see it in my lectures if you listen to the journey so far. And guys, just to let you know how I listen to my lectures, I do it based on number. Right? So when a number comes to me, so let's say I look at the clock and it's right now 2:07. Okay? So I would go listen to either lecture 2:07 or lecture 1407. And I've put lecture codes, so all you got to do is go on the search bar on YouTube and type MW and the number, and exactly my lecture comes up. So I've given lecture codes to all the lectures. Okay, so by typing the code, you don't have to type the lecture anymore. Do you know? And I've even made the profile, YouTube profile photo of my channel, the planet, where when I realized I can, like, I put when I understood I could do this, I'm like, this is the most perfect like logo. Do you know? Even in live streams, like, look at the live stream right now, right? It's only designed to have a black background with just the profile photo. Now you're looking at the planet as I'm talking on it. All right. let's get back to the real deal. So I brought up this whole idea of like, yo, do I want what my mind wants? And I'm suggesting that there's a separation of human mind. I'm suggesting that there's a separation of intelligence here. So the nature of man is key to realize. All right, all right. So guys, sorry, I just had to relocate. Anyways, so my attention's back here. Somebody says, I believe in Buddhism. I'm reading the chat, guys. I mean, in modern terms, it's so next level, because people look at like streamers like on Twitch or like famous streamers nowadays, and they're like, man, this generation's effed up, right? Like they're like, look at these, like, undeveloped humans, right? And at the same time, right, they don't realize that they are pioneers in introducing the global psyche to the relationship of a human being speaking to all of us. I'm kind of serving that purpose as well, indirectly. But for me, unlike the others, I've been tasked not to show my face and all that, because your attention should go to the concepts. That means what I speak about is more important than me. And that's okay. It's okay for there to be a greater power than me. It's okay for there to be so many people smarter than me. It's okay for me, to be in a world, where everyone can feel foolish. But to be honest, I'll tell you, you can tell how smart someone is, right? In regards to how much they realize it's all a theater performance. And there has to be this part of your unknown life force that is like, okay, what if they're all wrong? I gotta figure this out my own, right? So you become responsible for the mystery of reality. Somebody in the chat section says, do you believe, says, okay, so I was reading that. So they say, so, oh man, I forgot to finish the last thought. So the thing I was saying about streamers, they talk to their chat. So they say, hey chat, what's up chat? It's like chat's like a person now, like one individual entity. Like all you people, viewers and all of this, if there were like thousands of people to write something in the chat section, it's like to the person looking at the chat, they'd be like, hey chat, what do you think chat, right? So it's like a relationship with a collective being. You don't understand there's a metaphysical context to all physical reality, in the same way all known ideas are found within the unknown world. So chat says, I believe in Buddhism. One, soul, many faces or masks, like shadow clone jutsu. Okay, that's a Naruto reference. You know, shout out to my man Itachi. So somebody in the chat section says, I believe in Buddhism. One, soul, many faces are masks, like shadow clone jutsu. Only thing is God. God is the one doing it. Okay. I'll tell you how I agree with that. And then Chad says, "Do you believe on the do I believe in the multiverse?" And then somebody says, "This, Chad says, bro, which country are you in?" I'm currently in Toronto, Canada. But if you ask me which country I'm, like, where I am, I'll be like, dude, it's a planet. Relax, you know. I'm just existing on some part of the same planet. Yeah. It's like, you think because you're living on a different part of the planet, you're better than me? Reality is ridiculous, guys. It's all language games. You have to be very attentive and cautious to how the nature of reality occurs. Okay, my aim is not to teach anything because I realize it's a hoax. Okay, that means the whole student teacher thing, it's weird. And people are going to be like, Mr. Within, what do you mean, man? Haven't you had teachers? Haven't you had beings of greater realities teach you? And I'll be like, yes, I have been blessed to perceive, just the human conscious experience is, to in some sense witness presences that are different than my own, and to witness greatness, because that's the whole point of being raised in a world as a child. Like I'm 33 now, but there used to be a time I used to be 3. And imagine like a 3-year-old me looking at reality and wondering about how much is it going to care about actually understanding what's going on here. To be honest, when you're young, the world has a mind and authority of its own. They don't speak about this, but it's like some subconscious sense that because I'm new here, everybody else knows better, right? And that's how people lose themselves, actually. you know so to the person who asked in the chat section, so yeah, I don't have that view. I believe that God is intentionally a position, a view, that the human is rendered as the created. That means it's a type of causal power that the type of effects we are can't comprehend. Unless the system admin wills. Do you understand? That means, if I'll give you an example. So let's say, so I'm Muslim, okay, and imagine a Christian comes up to me and asks me, and I'm like, all right, man, as a Muslim, I believe that God has no partner. What does that mean? That means the higher power has no ideological or conceptual or shaped or formed equivalent. It can't be all of us. It can't be all shapes. It is knowing. It knows of all shapes. It's beyond all shapes. you know so it's having the courtesy or the decency, the kindness even, to be like, okay, the world I see is limited because the human species is limited. So this limited entity can either act as limitless, or it can choose to be honest with its limitations and to begin to understand that this is really the blessing of our species. There's a blessing for our species. That means, don't think there's just gifts for people. There's gifts that the species will open. AI is one of those. Even though we're still opening that gift. We just have to make sure in opening the gift we don't break what's in the gift. So Terrence, guys, sorry, I forgot if I'm leaving so many open ends here. So when Terrence, I like maybe like 10 minutes ago, I was talking about Terrence McKenna, okay, guys, about somebody who had taken psychedelics. I never finished the thought. I just had to say that he would say he would take psychedelic mushrooms, and he would go and sit in a dark room and close his eyes and watch what happens to his imagination. Okay? That means if you're someone in an altered state of consciousness, let's say whatever altered state of consciousness you're in, you need to stabilize yourself through stillness and silence to be able to function. So you need to find a simple moment to start reprocessing the whole moment from, you know? For me, if they're like, yo, somebody's gonna say something and you have to understand it in one go, that's when I close my eyes and I just hear what they're saying. Do you know what I'm saying? Like for me, listening is one of the greatest joys of life. Like I can't tell you how it is a blessing to realize that our species can not only express communication, but it can receive communication, right? And more than we are defined by the communication, we're legit like a species realizing we don't need to be defined by subjects only, right? Like you can be defined by an object because this is your body. Imagine in the future you have a privilege to have any kind of body. You know, I was having this conversation with someone because I'm a sci-fi writer, you know, and I was like, just think about it, guys. Imagine in a shape-shifting civilization, what would beauty mean if anybody instantly can be beautiful? Beauty would just be new. In a shape-shifting civilization, do you understand? All the insecure people would be clones of one another. You know, it's like, okay, today it's cool for everybody to be like this shape, that shape. Do you understand? That means that's worth, honestly, thank God there isn't like in genetics, in like the studies of genetics in regards to the DNA, I forget it, but it's like vertical, horizontal in regards to the movement of it. Okay, and what that means is our DNA is moving in a way that it doesn't change its shape. Like you can't just see someone who's like has white hair, or do you know, or you look at a show and the main character has glowing white eyes, right? And imagine like you suddenly are like, okay, that's a good look on me. That would be really cool, right? In the future, they're like, yo, man, we don't have a flashlight. No worries. You know, all the white part of our eye is going to glow and that's going to be a light of its own. Yeah. It's like, your face is glowing. It's like, no, thank you. You're too kind. No, your face is literally glowing. Oh, man. So anyways, folks, I believe that the multiverse is the reality of the mind. I don't believe in any human idea I have on the unknown. Do you understand? That means I'm at a point where I have realized, and this is not easy for me to say that I got to this point, but I reached a point where I had this like feeling it was like this from the beginning of my life, and then it got validated. You know, and I realized that in some sense I am a side character. I am not the main event. And the fact that I have treated my whole life as if I'm the main event has been an ideological self-obsession to in some sense meet a condition of a future which I don't know what it will be. Do you understand? Like, what is the human strategy to the future? Have you thought about this? Right? People are like defining the present based on the past and living in the present, and we're just living in our own meaning. And is that enough? Like fellow intelligent beings on this planet, is it enough? That every day we wake up and we're just an object and a new subject? Like, what is that? You know, to me, I was laughing at this. I'm like, what the F? I've lived around 12,000 days, meaning there's been 12,000 times I've woken up and I'm like, oh my God, another new day. It's like after you loop into this for a while, you're like, this is weird, man. It's like suddenly everything shuts down. Then I wake up and I have access to content, infinite content, and then it shuts down again. And then I have access to infinite content. It shuts down. And then I'm like, okay, what is this? Do you understand? It's like conscious. Is sleep like the eyelids of consciousness, or what is that? The whole point of this lecture was me to just come here in front of and report to the species and be like, guys, I've reached that point where I'm like, do I want what my mind wants? That means you're like, okay, let's say I figured out this reality is a simulation, okay, and then I figured out it's been culturally engineered, right? And I figured out all the, in some sense, simulated, invisible notions on reality that are being considered to be as real as the physical reality. We are no longer just a non-fiction species. We are a fictional species. We are. Nobody can deny. Nobody can deny that the idea of you is not something you can touch. It's not like I could be like, yeah, man, put your ego on the table, then I'll believe you have an ego. You're such a saint. It's about, like, for the first time today in these non-stop loops of manifestation, which is brilliant. I'm not ungrateful at all. I'm just fascinated about the nature of it. I'm trying to tell you that today was a day that for the first time I was like, do I want what my mind has shown me? Very strange day today for me. For the first time I'm wondering, do you know, again, the same dynamic. It was at first I was like, I had the ego. My ego was like some sword I was sharpening, and I was like training endlessly for this battle. And then they're like, okay, you're not destined for the battlefield. And I'm like, what? I've sharpened my ego to go speak in front of millions. Do you know why suddenly, the backdraw isn't, that means my ego was like, what? I'm not divine? Do you know? And I realized the whole point of divinity is just the moment you hear as a soul that there is a higher power and you're the lower power. You don't know, like the moment you hear that, it's like not game over, it's like game complete. The completed nature of reality. I am not here trying to be your teacher. I'm here just being like, all right, I'm a human being being live streamed in history, and I'm just looking at all of this from the corner, and I'm like, guys, I think none of us know what we're looking at. And let's unite over our confusions. Let us not just be confused, about the nature of existence. Let us be confused together. And to be honest, what I'm trying to tell you, it's all about the civility of man. Pretty much, human consciousness is functioning between a beastly realm and between an angelic realm. Now, what does that mean? An angelic realm, angels, they represent divine will. Angels don't have free will. So an angelic realm means literally Earth is a world, okay, between a world where everything is conscious of the system admin. Do you know? And this the divinity within the system. That means all the things you couldn't explain here, in a higher view of this same moment that is here, it's all divine command. What you interpret from this side of the coin as natural law, on the other side of the coin is a divine command. That means if somebody came to me and they're like, they were like, "Hey man, how do I figure out like my soul and stuff?" I'd be like, just forget about any word that doesn't have meaning for you yet, and just for a second ask yourself, what's going on here? Nothing spiritual, nothing complex. We don't want people to go meditate in the mountains. Where I'm just saying, find a moment where you just ask yourself, okay, if I had to honestly answer, if I had to honestly answer, it's happening beyond the human free will's interpretation. That's why I understand this. The religion is ahead. Why? Not because culturally it's behaving better than the other cultures, no. Because conceptually it has not ignored that this world has a host. That's what being religious means. You're conscious that it's been hosted. That means it's not your world. What it means is yours. The meaning we take away from our experiences, that belongs to us. But what is happening, it doesn't happen just because we want it to. I was that young 13-year-old. I was probably 13 or 11 or something around that age, where I was like, I looked in, like it was the first time I used the internet to like look for telekinesis. I can't even pronounce it up to this day. Telekinesis, okay? And I had this vision of, what if I could just command my room to be clean? Just command everything to go to place. Imagine. In a sci-fi situation, it would be as if like you doesn't matter how messy you live, right before you leave the house, you press a button and everything in the house restores to the same state. If there's new objects in the house puts them in a specific location, and the house is intelligent, right? Even the furniture, right? In 2015, when I was giving these lectures, I was living in a studio accommodation. I was studying mechanical engineering in Birmingham City University, but never, I wasn't destined to continue it, you know? I was destined to kind of change course, but but at that time I was living in this studio, and it had like four pieces of furniture in it, right? And I remember I would get bored. Like it would be a weekly thing. Like after 1 week, I would get bored of how the furniture was placed, to the degree that I had tried so many different ways. That means it was like I was solving an interior design problem, but the solution of the problem was only there because of an emotion, right? So it was as if like I wanted my furniture and interior design of my house, like place I was there living in, to adjust in accordance to how I felt. In the same way somebody goes to their house and they're like, man, let's say they put somebody, I don't know, uses something and then doesn't put it back in the same place, and the owner of the house is like, it starts being a burden on their psyche. Do you know what I mean? So in the future, houses will be intelligent. Every object will know where it has to go. It's like right before you leave, you just, in some sense, I don't know, press something equivalent to a doorbell inside your home, right? And imagine your key from wherever it is, just you hear jingles like Thor's hammer, just come, or imagine even better, you just raise your hand, right? And your house keys find your hand. You don't have to even worry about it, you could just walk and the keys just come right between your palm and wait until you grab them. you know? That would be an era where it's like hover technology or anti-gravity rooms have kind of been developed. In my science fiction, you know how people sleep? They're just sleeping in mid-air in their rooms. You know, that's the most comfortable, like, mattress you'll ever find, you know? Maybe astronauts can, you know. Can agree. All right, so pretty much going back to the title again, I'm pretty much saying that you know, the worlds that we can't fathom ourselves living, there will be children born for those worlds. That means right now we might be like, yo, man, is there going to be a child that from the moment it's born, it's going to be in virtual reality till the moment it dies? Right? A person that lived their whole lifetime in virtual reality. And we might not be able to fathom anyone wanting to do that now or even wanting to see that, but in the future there might be a soul born for that task. Who knows? Do you know? Who knows why reality moves in the way it does? Do you know? It's like we're characters in a novel and we're like, what's our purpose? And the saints and those who are God conscious in the novel, right? They're like, okay, the purpose of it is that you need to notice every day is God's handwriting, how the author is continuing the reality, because we are so fragile as beings that any moment we can in some sense stop existing. But there are commands that the body follows. For example, it's the same, sometimes I thought in myself, that I was in some sense encaged in a sort of cowardice, okay, until I reached the point where the external reality was confronted, and suddenly I realized the intensity was not as how I had imagined it. And we have to be very careful that if your mind chooses to live ahead of your time, you must realize where it began. That means how do I explain it? It doesn't matter how bad human civilization is, it's still our human civilization, That means right now, there is so many different actions being done by human beings on the planet. There's 8 billion of us, right? So obviously you can't control the outcome in that way, so there requires to be a higher agency. The human consciousness is designed to realize it is limited and to come into the contact with the unknown. And when you reach the unknown, that's the edge of knowledge. That means that your ego realizes, oh my God, I was acting like a king of a world that I don't really know. And how far does the attention of the species go? That means back in the day, there were kings and there were kingdoms and there was honor. Do you understand? And when you look at the modern reality, it has been stripped of its collective honor. Do you understand? And they're like, to me, I understand something that at least, nations are, their militaries provide honor, right? Guys, I don't know, this soundtrack's making me feel like Oppenheimer, movie scene vibes, that point where the guy starts hearing, the realities hidden behind, where all of us assume to be the final frontier. The question of what does the mind want? What do I want? What is that I beyond the mind? What is actually present in the moment existing? And so the divinity of reality is first, how is there existence here at all? And so if there's existence rather than nothing, that is divine. And then the next question is, why should there be movement at all? And you see the birds flying in the sky. You see human beings, fulfilling their errands throughout the day. and you begin to see massive mechanisms of biological organisms treating themselves as an idea, and then as an individual with an idea, with a name, with an ID, with a backstory, with a profile, do you know what I mean? Then they become in some sense a citizen of a nation. And what is a nation? A nation is an acknowledgement of a global, it's like, let me tell you this. Even though right now, if people are like, well, what's your, Mr. Within, what's your opinion on world politics? I'll be like, it's not like I could be like, oh my God, it's sunny, guys, you know? But, but at the same time, it's as if the politics of now, uh, how can I tell you? It's like, think of it that we're in a world filled with so many different systems, and these systems are not all just static. These systems are in a competition of evolution in regards to space. That means the human being doesn't understand it. If right now you ask a human being, what do you want? Most human beings will say money. Am I wrong? Everybody will say money. That's the world. That's how you know that, wow, they managed to like leash a species. But we have no choice. This leash is, in some sense, it's as if we have to be our own prison guards, do you know? Where in some sense, I think it's something David Icke was saying, right? Where he's like, we got to be like our own prison guards, right? In the sense that externally we have to constantly survive in an inefficient system. Do you understand? Right? But internally, it's as if it's like right now, human beings are living in a world that a part of them feels they were not made for. That means the soul may feel this realm is an enforced reality. But I will tell you, it's not enforcement, the context is deeper. To me, this has been the incredible nature of knowledge. It has never been like, yo man, tell me a sentence, so I stop looking for any more sentences. It's never about the language. It's about what the language points to, and what the language points to is ultimately an unknown force engaging, finding itself simulated in an existential system, and wondering about how this intelligence is moving. And it's about like this unknown movement, knowing how it's moving consciously. I don't know how to say it, but if somebody says, hey man, can you feel like an object physically you touch? I'll be like, yeah, I can feel that, right? But if you say, can you feel the life of the world? I have attempted this. I'm that person who in my mind, I just envisioned if a time traveler came back, I would be asking so many, like the questions I would be asking it, the time traveler is like, buddy, let me just tell you. And I'll be like, don't worry, I already know. You know. Okay. So pretty much I guess the focus was on okay. So let's say my mind right now, like, okay, let me use myself as an example. Let's say my mind right now, if they're like, hey, what do you want from this world? I'd be like, I'd love to build advanced research stations all over the planet, researching the most advanced ways that humanity can function. I want the development of a United Species Council. I want the all human beings, all humanity to be ushered into a new era of not conceptual responsibility, but contextual responsibility. That means you don't just feel, you're a citizen of a place in this world. You are the presence of an unknown life force. And wherever you have found yourself, there is value there because you are there, a force that has never existed in such a way. It's as if, like, I remember being a kid and watching these shows like DBZ, you know, and the characters in some sense would kind of like, do martial arts and then shout something and then create these, like power spheres, at the palm of their hands or something, and I was like, wow, look at that, that's so cool. They have power. But little did I realize the way power functions in human civilization is actually is a response to the existential scenario that is beyond what your ego expects of the world. That means it's like, for a moment I had to just pause my life and I'll be like, wait a minute, my body wants to go towards this reality, my mind wants to go towards that reality, my soul wants to return back to the system admin, and then there's me again, this unknown witnessing force that's been here every time I've been conscious and been like, okay, what now? And you reach a point where it's not like you don't have an ego, it's that you don't find a need for one. When you are in the presence of the higher power, what was the lower power? It's an attribute of that. That means rather than me being like, yo man, my ego is king, my ego is God, my ego is true, see, my ego is true, the whole truth. Rather than doing that, you realize, no. What is the humility of the soul? That we were created. We know nothing of the Creator aside from its mercy. And its mercy is not in just how it has designed us ingeniously, do you understand, for a faithful return to the original authority. For if Adam and Eve listened to a simulated serpent and their descendants were cast to live inside a simulation, and yet they are being tested again, what was the failure of the first soul? To forget that the original was in the room before all else. So you see, folks, it's no longer about, do you love God? Do you hate God? Do you believe in God? Do you not believe in God? It's as if it is you in the presence of all of it. In the presence of in some sense, imagine the edge of existence which you can't. And I will tell you, the true ascension of the human species is just that moment. It realizes, it realizes as the realms of knowledge that it discovered the unknown. But wait a minute, the unknown is bowing at the system admin. It discovered the future. The future is bowing at the system admin. It discovered love. Love is bowing at the system admin. It discovered truth. Truth is bowing at the system admin. What is the system admin? It is the unfathomable. It is the unimaginable. It is that which is beyond you. We are in the simulated side of this coin of reality. We are the effects that notice they are an effect of something. But it's beyond things. So what is the might of even being a soul considering a heaven? What is the value of being on earth and a place between like the higher worlds? It's all conscious, the conscious brilliance of divine will, and in the lower worlds it's savage looping delusionalism, dualism. To wonder about the true presence of the species. And this is very difficult because for the first time today, it occurred to me that, do I want what I have always wanted? Do I want what my ego wants? And I realized that my soul at some core level, by realizing how mighty the presence of the system admin is, I have been rendered preferenceless. That means if you ask me, am I divine? I will say, God knows. If you ask me, am I advanced? I'll be like, the edge of the world knows. We're reaching that era. I feel it. You know, I'm that guy who, I think back in the day, it's not that I would be a king. I would go and be a king, but I would be that person who, in some sense, would be that traveler who suddenly found that king in the right moment to advise, you know? Because to me, this world has a weight to it, do you know? That means to be responsible for existence. It may like you might sometimes forget the source of your experiential honor. That means, like, on some level, sure, I'm a DNA, but from another level, like, sure, I'm an idea, like I'm a person, idea of a person, right? But from another level, I am the rawness of energy. Do you know what I mean? That means any person that has been rude to me, they've offended just energy that cannot be created or destroyed. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying to some degree that I've understood that it's a state of consciousness oriented thing. And there was a moment where I'm like, who has given the idea of me so much power that the idea of me, anytime I identify with it, has to feel it's right all the time? I'm like, what the F is that delusion? You know, at some point you look at reality and you're like, all right, I get it, it's unknown. Behind everything we know, there's more unknown. It's more unknown than known, pretty much. So what do you do in an unknown world as an unknown self, you know? And you wonder about, if you didn't create this unknown world, who did? And why are you in an unknown world with specific design? Like, why are we on a planet right now? Right? And even you can even go deeper and be like, why are we even existing at all? And the person's like, okay, now do you believe in miracles, atheist? Like, oh man. Anyways, folks, I just realized that just because we have a mind oriented as a character in a story, in a sort of egoic context, and the definition of the ego, that, like, the ego is a very interesting, there's a very interesting geometry to it, but what in its simplest, basic way, it's like the idea of self that's administering you, right? So it's as if, like, if somebody communicates to you, you become an egoic entity. But if you're like one of those Himalayan yogis who's been silent for years and somebody's like, hey man, what's up? Like, the Himalayan yogi just stares at him in silence. You know? It's like, okay. It's like asking for directions from a Himalayan yogi who's taken a vow of silence. It's like, the guy doesn't say anything and the guy leaves and he's like, till the end of my life, I'll never know if the guy knew the address or not. Or the guy just could have pointed anywhere. I mean, the nature of the mind is that it becomes fascinated by design, it engages it, and just the mere engagement of a new modality, in some sense, renders you as a new being. For me, it's I kind of realize it's like the normal human life is like Peter Parker and Clark Kent, and the hidden life of people is like, Superman and Spider-Man. What I mean is that behind our eyes, we are living with the freedom of what the mind can project, but in front of our eyes, we're limited to how the existence has been projected so far. What happens next, who knows? Truth may be brilliant. If ignorance is not more important than understanding. It's a very weird thing to realize nobody on earth knows. We're just a corner of the universe that has noticed its mass movement, and it's all about just like, all right, man, I'm just looking at this space and there's movement. And what is the movement associated to? Why is the mind even in a paradigm to think that by associating meaning to move? Like it's honestly something that after some point you're like, there's infinite viewpoints. What should the mind do? And you just realize the mind just attempts its best. And I've reached, I don't know what sort of maturity this is, but I've reached that moment in my life where I'm like, I can see my mind. I can see my ambitions. I could see that self that in some sense is motivating my purpose. But the true purpose is that the door is open from the other side, which is another way of saying the system admin's mercy. That means the way out of the simulation is not you type in the right passcode and you're like, oh my God, am I enlightened now? Did I unlock enlightenment? It's like, no. You are in the presence of a force that moves reality before we experience it meaningfully. So the brain, from a secular perspective, is an information processor, but the nature of information is fictional. That means the meaning we give to something doesn't necessarily justify the reality of something. That means you think somebody is a good person, and in your mind you have an impression someone's good, and then you suddenly see they're a bad person. Right? So in some sense, the first instant you were convinced by the meaning you had given to a moment. Right? Anyways, the whole point of this lecture, I guess, was to just realize sometimes you need to wonder about what sort of context you are living purposefully in. Right? To me, it's a question of value and meaning. It's a question of how far ahead is the mind of the individual living than their body. You know, for some beings, if it lives too far ahead, they might not even care about now. You know, that means it's as if, like, even if a time traveler comes back to like 2025, right? It's caring for now. Like, I don't know. I think the soul realizes that, at least for a Muslim, the soul is a secret of God, and it is also the Amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either meaning that the soul is at its core an original command of the system admin, or it means that it's by the command of the system admin that there is a soul and a function. It functions by the command of the system admin. And at some point, when you realize your soul is not the main character of the source of reality, then you just relax. And I don't know how to say it. It's like there's I don't know how to say it, but it's like it's strangely an incredible blessing to realize that the moment doesn't just happen in accordance to our will, because our will is not perfect. There is more to the more that we can even know. Like there's so much going on in this reality that human beings don't notice or don't realize, that in some sense it's just like endless uncharted territories. But I feel we're shifting as conscious beings from the era of just constantly, I called it ideal worship or self-worship, right? Self-worship means my reality is the ultimate reality, meaning that the person's meaning is trying to, in a strangely fascistic way, make the whole world that meaning, right? You know, there's a difference with trying to capture the world and, in some sense, communicating to the world. You understand? And in regard, when I say capture, I'm talking about how, in some sense, we capture reality as an idea. We capture idea as an expression of a soul. Or in old school days, they'd be like, yo, man, a person's mind is, they didn't have a concept of mind, they just called it spirit activate. Like anything that moved in the moment, there was like, oh my God, is there a spirit there? You know? Like imagine the first people who realized, like, who came into contact with wind, right? And they didn't know what it was, and they just felt like something was pushing them, and they got scared and ran away every time when there was wind, you know. Just, they're like, something invisible's touching me right now. Honestly, folks, all I'm saying is that we have minds, our minds are conditioned, we've all gone through programming. At some point, you just woke up as an individual, and you've been a sort of egoic reconstruction, and every day we kind of log in and log out of reality. It is very video game like. I've often wondered about what the purpose of the video game is. That means more than I am here to identify with some position. It's like more than I'm here to feel like I'm not just playing the video game to feel like I'm this character only, and truth is only based on me feeling that I'm this character. It's as if you play the video game because there is something that needs to be fulfilled, right? And it's more like, the test of the system admin being that first user goes directly to the system admin and not doesn't, get bound by the mods, right? And in some sense, to truly have an advanced civilization, it means we are caring for how we look in front of other advanced civilizations. Do you know? An advanced civilization means that the beings in that civilization have managed to access the most advanced view. Now, since human beings are not the most advanced, I realize that there is a requirement for an advanced power beyond civilizational intelligence. So what does that mean? That means in the same way the soul's freedom from this world relies on it not just noticing the system admin, but in some sense acknowledging, praising it, and realizing that we are positioned here as unknown forces to live known lives in the presence of, what we call the knowledge and reality, but it's actually an unknown world, and the unknown world even as bowed, to the presence of the beyond. You see, the system administration is the ultimate. That means the unknown is as if like we can't see anymore, but the notion of the system admin is that it's that power that knows all that is manifest. There's a very beautiful perception in Islam where the notion is like, it's like, to me it came across like this, that before I was Muslim, consciously as an entity, right, with my own will, right? It was as if like I suddenly realized that there is a reason in the Holy Quran. It says, I have created mankind and jinkind for the sole purpose of worshipping me, means that the human species has been created to exist intentionally, to be that sort of being that has a conscious connection, has a conscious agency. That means there's a reason you're aware of reality, but that reason is not something that the ego can know. It's as if you just realize how the world is functioning in accordance to powers beyond the human capability to conceptualize, because the context surpasses the realistic context that we've been looping in. And so now I truly wonder, what I really want from this world is to smile upon the most advanced state in being, and then return to the original. For what else can a simulated being do? That means I've kind of got it, like, to some degree figured out. My body's going to return to the earth. My mind is going to express itself in like communication, and in some sense to try to build the advanced civilization. It's as if they're like, yo man, what kind of a lifetime did you live on earth? And I'll be like, I pretty much, like, I don't know really like how well I lived it, but I feel like at some point I decided the most advanced outcome was worth living for. And that's the kind of soul I am. I'm just like, I don't even know if it's ego or compassion or heart or divinity or what it is, but a part of me is like, why? Why can I envision an advanced civilization? Why is it so far away when I open my eyes? And so it's in some sense the march of a species in a world it doesn't know but has attempted to know it. And in some sense, let me tell you, there will always be this poetic story in the world of how the armies of knowledge assembled against the forces of the unknown. And so these two kingdoms will clash till we begin to realize that the system administrative force is the union. That means I'm a type of person that if you ask me, like, yo, in the future, right now in 2025, like, I'm such an early bird that people are like, yo man, this stuff is next level, right? But in the future, in the evenings, everybody's going to be talking like this, it's just going to be a habit. It's like all parents around the world, they're like, children, it doesn't matter what kind of life you're living in the evenings, just sit down, make a cup of tea, and just, talk about the future of everything, talk about the future of everything, and honestly, it's a return to the original. That means it's not even my responsibility to want to like advance civilization, but it's the right chess move. That means they're like, yo man, why didn't you live like a traditional life strategy towards, and I'll be like, I don't know man, some things are just, when you witness the original power, you are actually released from the burden of having to, like, if your brain has been trying to process everything in reality, Do you know? Which is an impossible task for it, and people are like, yo man, why are you suffering? It's like nothing, man. My brain's just trying to process all the information in my existence that I've been conscious of, and to truly wonder why we're all here, as conscious agents in a world that is so vast and unknown. And in its vastness and unknown, it's like not only we can't even see the edge of the world or truly know what's looking through our eyes, but it's like in the middle of this, there's an administrative system force. That means if we're in a system, we gotta ask, is it an intelligent system? Whenever you hear the notion of a divine agency in a world, which that is actually a blessing, there are worlds that never, their divine agency gets forgotten. Or they don't deserve it. Or they are being tested. At some point, I'm like, okay, I'm a soul in a world right now. Where are the values coming from? Okay, there's a value of my body existing in existence. There's a value of my mind caring to, in some sense, create something before it no longer is here, or something like that. A'udhu billahi shaitan rajim. May God protect us from ignorance. Let us wonder about the true advancement of reality beyond how we, it's like we chain the world in meaning. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like your body is dependent on the external environment, but also how your body responds to the external environment is dependent of how your body responds to its internal environment. And your internal environment is about how you contextualize reality, then discover the positioning of concepts in that reality. So when I say the unknown, okay, I'll give you an example, right? So if we have the concept of a known being, that known being is in the context of the unknown. The unknown is the context to the known. Okay, if the known is conceptual. Now, if in the so think there's a conceptual. Imagine like there's these two chairs. One is conceptual, one is contextual. Okay. So one is conceptual. Okay, just imagine this relationship of concept-context. Okay, concept is found inside contexts. Okay, and context can be reconceptualized to discover new contexts. Okay, but I'm saying just remember this concept-context thing. Okay, so now I'm saying these are like seats, and now in the concept seat there could be the unknown, and the context becomes the known. That means to an unknown being, everything is known except itself. To a known being, everything is unknown except itself. That means if I'm a known being right now, the context is unknown. So there's technically 4 modes of this I can see, right? So let's take a known self in a known world, and known self in an unknown world. Okay? Then we have an unknown self in a known world and an unknown self in an unknown world. Do you see these 4 dynamics? Right now, the unknown self in an unknown world, that's in divine command territory. Do you know? The known self in the known world, that's in the physical territory. These are sectors of, let's say, the state of awareness that we are. We need to honor the kingdom of humanity, and in one of my sci-fi, I had this context where I'm like, it's like, imagine there in the future there was a very advanced civilization, let's say let's be playful here, in a sci-fi way, of a multiverse where In a parallel universe, there was like humanity had managed to build a very advanced civilization, and they're like, how did you do it? How did you figure out the politics of this advanced civilization? And that advanced civilization of Earth, of humans, advanced human civilization looks and says, we realized, thanks to this podcaster, this podcaster, with the initials MW, that we are all inside the human kingdom, and no living human wears the crown. The future generations wear the crown, and we're all servants and knights of the future greatness of the realm. Do you understand? That means at some point the mind is not satisfied with just existing. The mind has to live for a purpose. If that purpose is beneath itself, it suffers. If that surface is beyond itself, it is re-energized, refreshed by it. Anyways, as a human being in history, I am wondering, do I want what my mind wants? And the true answer is, I want what the greatest awareness, most advanced state knows. So I rather want what God wants for my life rather than what I want for my life. Which is another way of saying I will have faith in the unknown. In other words, I have bowed many times, and I will continue to bow for many times more, for what God is the greatest power. It's the causal power. It's the original being. We're all simulations, finding our meanings in our limited universes. There's something more here. So once you pull the curtains on the unknown, it is the road to conscious divinity. You find the road to conscious divinity. The most advanced civilization is actually a divine civilization. It is conscious of the most advanced power built in everything. It's a collaboration of human will. So not only we have to take care of all the species, but we have to take care of all the human beings that are living as specific egos, whether stable or not and whatever, and it's just the nature of attention. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this lecture was fruitful. Imagine like the viewers go eat food after this. They're like, Mr.Within even promotes a healthy diet, Anyways, thank you for listening, and I'll end the lecture here. And of course, God knows the unseen best. We are human beings here playing our human role. I consider myself as the human experiencer. That means I am experiencing myself as human as part of the moment. The whole moment's awareness is not just human. It is human plus everything else there's in awareness. So the vastness of reality is very fascinating. The nature of self-simulated, noticing your own self-simulated meaning, like that's fascinating for a human being to do. So you start off first, creating your own world and then living in it, and then at some point you wonder about what's beyond your own world. And when you truly go beyond your own world, you have in some sense discovered who else you could have always been. It's a fascinating awareness. Because at some point it's not about knowing God is real or truth being always transformation or transcendence. It is a matter of realizing it's the ultimate value to every moment is not based on the limits of our awareness. So the moment has a value beyond our comprehension. So in that moment, we have to trust in what is shared within our conscious domain. That means we no longer question divinity. We just wonder what we have noticed so far, and can we live a day where everything that happens we wonder about, could this be more than just human minds and hungry bodies? Could this be a nature of what moves in reality? And do you trust the simulation to the degree that you realize it's simulated? That means it's strange. It's like the way you become free out of this simulation is by like treating it real, but deep down knowing it's not. Honestly, God knows. It's God's mercy. That's my whole point. The system admin can will it. Again, if a Christian person comes and says Christ is God, like God itself, and I'll be like, as a Muslim, I can't except a God does not have a partner, which means there is no equal sign between God and anything, right? But from God's perspective, God can do anything. That means God truly knows. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.